Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, welcome to another amazing episode of the podcast titled Questions, where we pursue questions through faith in Christ. And yet again, of course, I have another amazing episode just for you. So without any further ado, without any further delay, let's jump right into it. I have a question to start off with. I mean, considering the fact that the title of the podcast, the name of the podcast is Questions. I'm trying to be funny. But anyways, I'm not going to be funny because I know I'm not. But I have a question for you. Have you ever been around people um that just make you feel tired, drained, and exhausted? Like, have you ever hung out with people or spent time with people, and after that, when they're all gone, you're like, oh, I feel so drained and tired and exhausted. Or have you, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this one. Have you ever dated somebody who when they said to you, "Hey, I'm going to be out of town for a week," and you're like, "Oh, thank goodness, I'm so free time and enough time to myself." Th- the answer is probably yes. The point I'm trying to make here is this: I've come to realize one thing, and I'm speaking holistically. I'm not just speaking regarding to dating. It's dating, friends, family, doesn't matter. Everything. I've come to realize that, ladies and gentlemen, that we live in a society where people expect and people take. I think, and I could be wrong. I don't have the mathematical statistics or have done any particular research on this. So, for the most part, maybe this is anecdotal. But for those who can relate, and I think it's the majority of people who can relate. We live in a time where people take. And I remember speaking to one of my friends about this, and she could relate to something similar where people take, people take, people take, people take, people take. Throughout the years, I've had family members who only contact me when they need something, when they need money. I've known people who get a hold of me if they need or if they want something. Like it's like when you get that text message and you see who it's from, and you're already drained, and you're like, oh, this person probably wants this person wants that, or or just friends who you just, I don't know, drain the life out of you, where people sometimes people may feel like work. And I think, if I be more specific, when it comes to dating, with dating, it always feels like um people are looking for, okay, who's going to get me out of this? Who's going to fix my life? Who's going to get my bills paid? Um, I'm looking for somebody who can do this for me, if that makes sense. Quote unquote, what do you bring to the table? I need somebody who's going to pay my bills. I need somebody, like, if that makes sense. Um, you know, it feels as if people are being used as ladders. You think of, okay, um can I be friends with this person? Is this person going to get me to my next promotion, or what benefit that this person, what can I take from this person, how can this person, this human being, benefit me? The reason why I'm bringing that up in this podcast is that, um I like how Christ flips it, and that's who I'm learning from. I'm learning from Christ. you know our contemporary society. In fact, I don't think it's our contemporary society. I think this has been around for ages. I look at Christ. He says things like, "It's not the one who's reclining at the table who's great, but it's the one who serves the table." You look at Christ and how he washes his disciples' feet, and he says, "Do this for each other." And he tells, and I've spoken about this before in a few episodes back, and I encourage you to go back and go listen. And he speaking to disciples. He says, the rulers of the Gentiles lord their authority over them, but it should not be like that with you. And he tells his disciples, whoever wants to be great among you must serve, must take the lowest position and serve people. When the disciples were arguing about who amongst them was great, who's number one, who's the favorite, Christ says, the greatest among you is the one who serves. He says, if you want to be great in God's eyes, you have to take the lowest position and serve. You look at Christ, who was God, the story, Son of God, God. He took the lowest form as a human being, came to earth and to serve humanity, even to the point where it killed him. Now, you think about that, like, you see, the world says, what can I get out of somebody? But Christ says, how can I serve somebody? Now, this, not this, you know, this is also, as much as, I really believe in this. I really believe in this. I genuinely, 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 wholeheartedly believe in this. But it does come with a bit of a challenge, a bit of a challenge. I'm gonna sip my coffee. Not coffee, excuse me. I'm drinking tea. I don't like coffee. I'm a tea person. I think the challenging thing about um, as Christ says, the greatest amongst you must serve, as somebody who actually genuinely believes that. I've come to experience that. When you live in a world where people just take and take and take, and you come in and serve and serve and serve, you are in a lot of trouble. I found that, trying to be Christ-like, which, that should be a goal of any believer. Trying to be Christ-like. Also, I want to be great in the eyes of God. And the greatest in the eyes of God is the one whom serves. So that's been my approach with people. And for the most part, you know, it always works with people. That has been my approach in my relationships. And it works, for those whom I'm in a relationship with. And at the end, I feel tired, exhausted, and dry because I give, 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 and and people just take, take, take. And you're like, okay, God, like I'm being Christ-like, but where to from here? I've been preaching this message for a while now, like serve, 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 give, take the lowest position and serve, take the lowest position and serve. Um, but also I think I haven't really, really, like from a practical standpoint, I haven't thought about if I'm trying to, for lack of a better term, the ramifications of that kind of approach to interacting or being rather in relation with people. Is that unfortunately, for the most part, people are opportunists. So you look at someone like Christ, who gave, 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 and served, served, served. I realized one very significant thing about him. Um, he selected his own. He selected his 12 disciples, or maybe a few people that he was always with, and he served them. I don't look at Christ and see somebody who became a servant of everyone. I think, I mean, he is the Son of God, the Messiah. I have to credit him to being wise and smart. I I think he's smart, and I think he understands human nature. But also think, I'd like to think that Christ, he chose his disciples, he chose his people, he chose his people whom he washed, um, whom he served and washed their feet for. Because, in context, remember, washing feet is extremely significant in their time. They'd walk for hours and miles and kilometers to get from location to location. They didn't have cars like we do. They did not have transportation like we do. So with their sandals, they have dirty feet. And only God knows what else was on their feet, what else they had to walk on, And I speak from somebody who lives in San Francisco, who walks all over things. So washing someone's feet was actually quite significant. It's something very lowly that somebody in a low position would do. So I realized one thing about Christ is that he chose whom he served as he washed his disciples' feet. He didn't go around and just became a doormat for everyone. And as much as I encourage, and I'm a huge, 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 huge on serving. I really am huge on taking the lowest position in serving. I think for me, what I've changed recently is I've chosen my own. I've chosen my own of whom I'll serve, where I know that it's not it's not going to render me dry and completely exhausted. But I've chosen, like Christ chose his 12, you know. I don't have a 12 that I've chosen, but you get my point. But I've chosen whom are the ones that I would want to serve in that regard. Because at the end of the day, I genuinely believe that to walk with Christ, we are all called to serve. And for those who serve in churches, volunteers. I think I was listening to I saw a video online about how churches take advantage of volunteers sometimes. I think it's very sad. Like one thing I really, really, really appreciate about my previous church, the one that I used to uh church that I used to attend, is that when I was serving there, I got paid for the work that I did. Um, Even though I thought, no, it's church work, I'm volunteering. Now I got paid for it. Like looking back, I'm thinking, wow, I got paid for it, and I really respect that. I think as disciples and followers of Christ, think the problem is when it comes to serving, and relationships is that things can always be lopsided. So if you are volunteering at your church, I would like to make a recommendation that you request that you are met at least halfway. Uh, you know, I think we live in a very, the economy is not great, and your time that you put into something should not just be just swept under the rug. If you are volunteering at your church, and it does take hours and does take effort. Obviously, we don't do this for money. We don't do anything to gain anything out of it. But I also think there needs to be a balance where you're not just pouring into something and you're not getting something for your time. If that makes sense. Accountability. Um, 'Cause it's easy to take people advantage of people who are eager to serve, who are eager and willing to serve. It's very easy to take advantage of them. I think for me, for example, if I have a job for somebody, whether that's editing or something, if I may need something from somebody, I always like to compensate. It's their time and effort, and this time that they're giving to me is time they can use so that they can provide for their families, or thinking about the economy. I'm thinking about this person's needs. If I can, I will. So as much as not as much as I do still encourage serving. I think that is essentially walking with Christ. I think walking with Christ is being a servant. I think walking with Christ is giving. I think walking with Christ is assuming the lowest position and serving our communities. I think um, that's what walking with Christ is. That's what we do. That is a definition of a disciple. And I genuinely believe if you want to be great in God's eyes, you have to assume the lowest position and serve. But also as human beings, I think we need to be cognizant and aware, so that we just don't get taken advantage of. Um, I think it's important, firstly, to be active in our communities where there's needy people. We need to come together and feed the poor, the strangers, um, but not to a point where we have nothing. One thing, one of my, when you fly when you fly on in an airplane, the hostess, they always do this thing where they tell you, if in case of an emergency, first put your face mask on before you put a face mask on your neighbor before you save anyone else. We cannot pour into people when we are empty. So we need to be filled first so that we can pour into other people. Like as I was speaking on previous episodes and how the inaugural church, there were not any poor among them because those who had an abundance provided for those who didn't have. So if the entire church is poor, then obviously they cannot, like, how are they going to share resources? So if 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 by God's grace you have an abundance, if by God's grace if you have an abundance, I believe that that is a responsibility. I'm going to quote Spider-Man: with great power comes great responsibility, but in this case, with much resources comes, uh, much responsibility. I think if you are in a position to pour into people, I think it's therefore your duty as a disciple of Christ to do so. And also, I think one thing I'm trying to do is I serve with the intention of teaching people to serve as well. Like it's me leading by by example. I'm not I'm not assuming the lowest position here so that you know somebody's gaining something from this, but I'm assuming that position, serving and showing the person that I'm serving how to pay it forward so that they can serve the next person. And when it, and if that makes sense. So think the point that I'm trying to make is this is that yes, I do encourage and I fully stand on, take assuming the lowest position in serving our people. But also, I'm aware that, it can get lopsided sometimes and it can get draining sometimes when you always give, 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 give. I'm aware of those, and that's something that I've also been thinking about. I've been also been praying about. I'm thinking, okay, God, like, I've been giving and I feel tired. Where's the balance? And then it hit me. Christ chose his 12. The 12 that he poured into for however long he spent time, however long he was with them, he was pouring into them, teaching them, showing them how to pay it forward, how to serve, as he washed their feet and said, this is what you ought to do. He was showing them how to go out into the world and pay it forward, and I think as servants of God and as much as we are serving people, we also ought to teach and show people um, how to pay it forward. It's and quite frankly, there are people out there, that are always expecting. I think there'll always be people out there that are always expecting, and people who always want to take, 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 and take and take. I think with discretion, I think it's important for us to discern. It's important for us to discern where we sow our seeds. I think it's important. We are not superheroes. We can't save the world. We can't serve everyone. But I think while we serving, I think we need to serve where we are needed the most. I think throughout the years I've learned that you know um, you can't serve everyone, but if you are serving, I think it's important to also discern. If I may use this term, if it's a place where you feel as if you can sow seed and like invest in, if that makes sense. We're only human. Um, I think ideally, it'll be great to live in a world where we can all be there for each other. Nothing is as difficult as being in a lopsided relationship, whether that's romantic, whether that's a friendship, whether it's family. Where I have a friend who's providing for his family. He works, and most of his money goes back home. And all they ever want from him is money and resources. Now, as a human being, that is painful. I know that feeling where when you hear that notification, or you see that notification on your phone, and oh, somebody wants something out of me. Just doesn't matter how my life is going, just as long as they get what they want. Nothing is as challenging as that. I think, believe it or not, I appreciate, uh, personally, I appreciate a text just asking me, "Hey, how are you doing?" I really appreciate that. Or somebody's just saying, "Hey, hi, I was checking on you." Like, I cannot make you understand how such a message, or when somebody says that to you, how full of life it is. Because a lot of the times people look at me and they think, okay, I need something from you, or what can I get out of this person? And something also that I've learned from my mother throughout the years while she was still alive, God bless her soul, is that she was a giver, and people only got in contact with her when they were in trouble or when they needed something, and she got tired of it. It does something to you, it just drains you. Um, but I think it's also a reminder that we're all human. We can only give so much. We can only do so much for people, and we cannot give to everyone. I think like James writes that, you know, um, which or it's Paul. I forgot which one of the two. It's important to take care of our families first, then help others where we can. But I think it's hard to help people who don't want to be helped. Sometimes. Um, it's also hard to serve people who just want, and you just want to take. So I think it's discernment. And I think that's what I think it is. Christ had his 12, not that uh, Jesus was only exclusively serving his 12 disciples, but he had his 12 that he was he was one man. At the end of the day, he was one man. He became a man. He had limitations. He he couldn't serve 5 or 10,000 people at once. I cannot serve 5 or 10,000 people at once, but um, whatever resources that God has given us, to whom we need to serve, we serve. And to those whom we cannot, we can call upon the church collectively to come and serve and help people out. And, like the inaugural first century church, and how they came together and helped those who were in need, and sometimes also helping people. It's also teaching them to take care of themselves. You know, um, we sometimes just can't just give somebody. We need to learn. We need to learn how. We need to teach people how to provide for themselves as well. You know, we cannot make people overly reliant in just receiving things, but we also need to teach them how to get these things and how to take care of themselves. You cannot. What's that saying? You cannot force. You can take the donkey to the lake, but you cannot force it to drink. Something like that. Um, so I do encourage us to continue serving. I do believe that to be great in God's eyes is to serve, is to assume the lowest position and serve. But it's also important to understand that we cannot serve everyone. We are only human beings, and it's important to discern as well. Like, some people, it's not that they're not worth serving, it's that um it's just I just think some people just are not looking for that particular, um if I can say this, kind of ministry at that point in their life where they're being served. They're not in that space where they can where they know how to receive. I mean, you can give someone resources and resources. I've seen a few relatives of mine receive opportunities after opportunities after opportunity after opportunities, more opportunities than I've received, and still couldn't make nothing out of them. Like I know relatives who've thrown their life down the drain. They've been bailed out of jail because their father was somebody. Their father had money. They were taken to the best schools. They were given the best life, but somehow they it just they you know and I know, and every time I think, I was like, if I had those kinds of resources, those many opportunities, goodness, can you believe what I could have done with my life? So I just think some people perhaps are not ready, and that also had me think, if that's how maybe God also sees it sometimes. I don't know. I'm just a food for thought. Maybe sometimes God says, maybe you're not ready for this because I know a lot of people, relatives of mine, who were not ready for all the resources and all the opportunities they had. You know, so we are servants. We're here to serve. We're here to be great in God's eyes and serve our communities always. But let us discern. Let us discern. Let us go out there. Let us feed the poor. But also, when we feed the poor, let us teach them. Let us educate them on how to stand on their own 2 feet. Um, Let us care for the orphans. Um, Let us love the widows. Let us take care of the foreigners and those who are in need. Let us serve our communities and love people because that's what we've been called to do. We're not called to recline on the table, but we're called to serve the table. And sometimes the table may not know how to receive you. I guess maybe you can move to the next table and serve. But I don't think it stops us from serving. I think for me, I've become more intentional with whom I serve. Um, it like not that I have a specific 12. I have, quote unquote, as a metaphor, I have my 12 disciples whom I assume the lowest position and serve because that is what we're called to do. I genuinely believe that. I think it's humbling. Same for Christ. The story of God becoming a man, humbling himself to serve humanity. When you sit and you actually think about it, it's actually mind blowing. When you actually sit and you think about it, because you are God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. You are everything. This universe worships you. This universe owes you just, I don't know, for existing. But you choose to take the lowest position, serve this creation that you made, even though they don't appreciate you, even though they don't love you. I mean, that is mind blowing. And that's what Christ calls us to do. That is love. That is love. I mean, I mean, even, even though Christ humbled himself and served people, and it's not like humanity received him well. Look what happened to him. But either way, we are called to serve. We're not called to live selfish lives outside the poor, but we're called to give, because that's what Christ does. For God so loved the world that He gave. That's what we're called to do. You know. And yes, and I would like to thank you for listening to this podcast from wherever around the world you're from, whether you're from America, whether you're from Japan, South Africa, Singapore, France, Lesotho. If I didn't call out the name of your country, please forgive me. It'll also be nice to hear from you. Do do get in touch. You can find everything now to get in touch on my website, princemakoko.com. I'm going to say that again. It's princemakoko.com. It's prince makoko.com. Until then, thank you very much.